I have a life-threatening allergy to coffee. My friend tested it behind my back, and I ended up in the hospital. I never imagined I would be writing something like this, but I've learned that life has a strange way of forcing clarity on you when you least expect it. For years, I thought I was good at judging people. I thought I understood loyalty, trust, and the quiet rules that hold friendships together. Then one ordinary afternoon unraveled all of that. I have a severe allergy to coffee. Not caffeine sensitivity. Not, it makes me anxious. An actual, medically documented allergy. It's rare enough that people often don't believe me at first, and common enough that it becomes a recurring problem. Coffee is everywhere. Offices, homes, cafes, social gatherings. It's treated like water in adult life. Because of that, I learned early on to be very open about it. I tell people directly. I repeat myself. I remind them. I avoid shared cups. I bring my own tea. I don't take chances. It's not dramatic, it's survival. Most people understand once they see how serious I am. My friend Mark was one of those people. Or at least, I thought he was. We had been friends for almost 6 years. We met through work, bonded over mutual frustration with office politics, and slowly became part of the same social circle. He wasn't my best friend, but close enough that I trusted him in his own home. We'd had long talks about life, ambitions, disappointments. He knew my habits. He knew my limits. And he knew about my allergy. I had told him multiple times. Casually at first, then more seriously after a few close calls at cafes. He had even witnessed me double-check ingredients before. Once, when someone offered me a coffee-flavored dessert, he chimed in before I could and said, "They can't have coffee, it's actually dangerous for them." That memory would come back to haunt me later. The day everything went wrong started in the most ordinary way imaginable. I was at his apartment on a weekend afternoon. No party. No tension. Just two people hanging out, talking about work and random life updates. The weather was dull, the kind of day that makes you want something warm to drink. At some point he stood up and said, "Want some tea?" I said yes, automatically. Tea was my safe default. Always had been. He went into the kitchen, and I stayed on the couch scrolling through my phone. I remember thinking how normal everything felt. Comfortable. Familiar. Safe. When he came back, he handed me a mug and sat across from me. I thanked him. We kept talking. I took a sip. Right away, something felt off. Not in an alarming way at first. Just different. Stronger. Bitter in a way my usual tea wasn't. I remember tilting the mug slightly, looking at the color, wondering if he'd used a different brand. I even joked, "Did you switch teas or something?" He laughed, but it wasn't his usual laugh. It was quick, clipped. Almost nervous. I didn't notice that properly until much later, when I replayed the moment over and over in my head. I took another sip. Within a few minutes, my body started sending warning signals I knew far too well. My chest felt tight. My throat felt strange, not painful, but wrong. My heart started racing in that very specific way that doesn't come from anxiety alone. My skin began to itch lightly, like static under the surface. A cold realization settled in my stomach. I asked him again, more seriously this time, "What did you put in this?" He hesitated. That pause, less than a second, changed everything. Then he said, almost casually, "Relax. It's basically tea. There's barely any coffee in it." I stared at him, trying to process the words. "What do you mean, coffee?" He shrugged, smiling in a way that felt wrong. "I just wanted to see if your allergy was actually real. You always talk about it like it's life or death." I remember standing up too fast. My head spun. My voice came out sharper than I expected. "You know I can't have coffee." "I didn't think it would actually do anything," he said. "You look fine." I was not fine. My breathing was becoming harder to control, shallow and fast. Panic mixed with physical symptoms, which only made everything worse. I told him to call for help. At first, he hesitated, saying I was overreacting. Then he saw my hands shaking. The tone in the room changed instantly. He started apologizing, talking too fast, pacing. I sat down on the floor because my legs didn't feel steady. I remember focusing on the sound of my own breathing, trying to keep it slow, trying not to spiral. The next stretch of time is fragmented in my memory. I remember voices. I remember feeling embarrassed for causing a scene. I remember being scared in a quiet, contained way, not screaming fear, but the kind that sits heavy in your chest. I remember the hospital ceiling. I won't go into medical details, but I was admitted and monitored. The staff took it seriously. Much more seriously than my friend had. One of the doctors asked me very calmly what I had consumed and whether it was intentional exposure. That phrase stuck with me, intentional exposure. It sounded so clinical, so detached, yet it described exactly what had happened. While I was in the hospital, my phone started filling with messages. At first, apologies. I didn't mean it. I swear I thought you were exaggerating. I just wanted to prove it wasn't that bad. I feel awful. Then the tone shifted. You're okay now, right? They wouldn't keep you if it was serious. You don't have to make this a big thing. I was just curious. You know I'd never actually want to hurt you. That last one made my hands shake more than the reaction itself. Because that was the moment I realized something important. He still didn't understand what he had done. Friends came to visit. Family called constantly. When I explained what happened out loud, slowly, carefully, I started hearing how bad it sounded even to my own ears. Not exaggerated. Not dramatic. Just wrong. Someone knowingly gave me something they knew could harm me. The hospital staff were very clear, this was not a prank. This was not harmless curiosity. This was a serious breach of safety. One nurse said quietly, "People don't get to test other people's medical conditions." That sentence stayed with me. After I was discharged, I tried to go back to normal. But normal felt different. I replayed the moment in the kitchen constantly, the hesitation, the smile, the casual tone. I kept asking myself why he needed to test me at all. Why my word hadn't been enough. When I told him I needed space, he got defensive. He said I was ruining his life over a misunderstanding. He said I was making him look like a monster. He said nobody would believe me anyway because coffee allergies aren't even real. That was the moment something hardened inside me. I talked to a lawyer, mostly just to understand my options. I wasn't seeking revenge. I wasn't angry in a cinematic way. I was exhausted, shaken, and trying to make sense of how a friendship could collapse so completely. The lawyer listened quietly, asked questions, reviewed messages. Then said something that reframed everything for me. This isn't about friendship. This is about consent and safety. They explained that knowingly exposing someone to something they're allergic to, especially after being informed, carries serious consequences. Intent doesn't disappear just because someone says they were curious. I went back and forth for weeks before deciding to move forward. I doubted myself constantly. I worried about being seen as dramatic. I worried about mutual friends taking sides. I worried about the label of the person who sued a friend. But I also thought about what could have happened if I hadn't recognized the symptoms quickly. Or if I'd been alone. Or if someone else with a condition trusted him the same way. During the process, more information came out. Old messages where he joked about testing me. Comments to others suggesting I was exaggerating for attention. Casual dismissal disguised as humor. None of it looked harmless when laid out plainly. We are no longer in contact. The case eventually settled. I can't share details, and honestly, they're not the important part. What mattered most was something quieter, being believed. Having professionals, neutral third parties, look at what happened and say, clearly, that it wasn't okay. That validation helped me more than I expected. Recovery wasn't just physical. Trust became complicated. I found myself watching people more closely. Listening to tone. Noticing reactions when I mentioned my allergy. I became more careful about who I let prepare food or drinks for me. I still drink tea. I still enjoy small routines. But I also advocate for myself more firmly now. I don't soften my words to make others comfortable. I don't apologize for being cautious. If someone jokes about testing it, I shut that down immediately. What I learned from all of this is simple but heavy: people reveal who they are when they think your boundaries are inconvenient. When your safety interferes with their curiosity. When your needs ask them to take something seriously. A real friend doesn't need proof that your condition exists. They don't need evidence in the form of harm. They don't gamble with your body to satisfy their doubt. If you're reading this and you live with a medical condition that others minimize, please hear this clearly: you are not overreacting. You are not dramatic. You are not too sensitive. You are allowed to protect yourself, even if it makes others uncomfortable. And if someone ever decides to test your limits without your consent, that's not a joke, not curiosity, and not friendship. That's a choice. And choices have consequences.